I grew up in a frat, and it's a very good place to grow up in it. But the Judaism, or how I see Judaism before Bronfman, was like a straight line. It's of only one option to be Jewish. It's the right option. It's in the only option. But in Bronfman, I understand that Judaism is not one option. It's like rainbow. Because of Bronfman, I start to build a way it's right for me to be Jewish. I do things different, and I hope is every Jew do like me and search his way to be Jewish. This is my tzitzit. It's a light blue keffiyeh because I feel part of this area. It's an Arab area, but it's a Hebrew area. Because of Bronfman, I decided to learn in the first really open yeshiva in Israel. They're open for everyone, religions, unreligions, women and men. I understand in Bronfman, if I want to understand the Jewish story, I need to learn with all kinds of Jews.
I'm a journalist at the New York Times, and I cover labor in the workplace. And one thing that I think inspires me a lot about the people I interview and talk to is that they really expect a lot from the institutions that they're part of. And so I think there's like a new generation of people coming up who are coming into workplaces and schools and communities and just demanding a lot from the leaders of those institutions in terms of their engagement with social issues all around us. I'm at a kind of fun stage of my own Jewish life and identity because it's not kind of mediated through my parents' expectations anymore. It's something that I feel like I'm constructing myself. And I would say one of the most kind of meaningful ways I feel like I get to engage with Judaism now is through culture, through the books I read and the magazines I subscribe to and the music I listen to. And I think one of the most fun stories I've gotten to write in recent years was about a magazine called Jewish Currents. It was in a way for me an opportunity to write a story that felt like this kind of breaking open of what Judaism means to people right now and all the new ways people are finding to rework old traditions. Growing up, I felt like Judaism to me was so many rituals and traditions and norms that my parents kind of handed to me and I could just take or leave. And Bronfman felt like this space that kind of cleared the way for me to start thinking about what actually resonates for me. I hadn't ever been in a community that really said, we're going to make space for every kind of ideology. You don't really think about how much intentionality is required to build a community that makes people feel comfortable until you're somewhere where that is actually like the priority and the driving force and the driving question. I think it can sort of fade into the background, or you can think like, oh, maybe we'll dance around the difficult subjects in order to make sure everyone can feel comfortable here. But to say like, we're gonna confront the difficult subjects head on and we're still gonna make sure everyone can stay at the table, I think is just an unbelievable kind of commitment.
I remember on Bronfman, it was one of the first times like I was really actually thinking about what does it mean to be a Latin American Jew, for example, and to share about my intersectional identity, for example, was something that I kind of just took for granted growing up. It was, it was very natural to me that I would be at a Shabbat dinner and then we would, have some Latin American dishes and then also with the challah, it was these mixes and it was just, it came so naturally to me. But I think on Bronfman, it really pushed me to ask questions, to think like, what does this actually mean? What does this say more broadly about the Jewish experience? So I recently got back from Costa Rica. I was doing a Fulbright research grant over there, and I was doing a project on immigration policy. I would be in areas where there were 300 people waiting for a bus to take them to the border, and there were no NGOs around, very minimal government. People had just crossed the Darien jungle. People crossed Panama very quickly. So you would still see the physical kind of scars, the emotional scars that people were facing from that. People were left in the forgotten. There's a policy of inaction a lot of the times. And that was a big theme for me to kind of figure out how can we combat this policy of inaction, which actually exacerbates the bigger problems in our immigration system. One of the things that from the time I was 17, right, to the present, I've seen kind of the world become very tense politically. And think it's something that for me personally is a challenge, right? Because I'm someone who really likes to bring people together and sit down and have discourse. And I remember in college, I had moments where at times I would be like, what is the future of our kind of political system, this ability to have discourse? And it was moments like the alumni retreat that it reminded me we still have an opportunity to sit down and have these discussions, even with people we fundamentally disagree with on political matters. I think we're in a world right now that's pushing us towards being kind of within the status quo or fitting a certain mold. And I think on Bronfman, a big part of it was saying like, no, really be who you are, because that's how you make an impact in a community.
I think it's a program that builds empathy. And I think that's so important, especially in like an internet disconnected era.
I was very frustrated, or until then I felt every journey of a search, mostly in the Jewish identities first, but also in the Israeli society, is hard, is struggle, is bad, because you don't have the answer. And when I came to Bronfman, I discovered it can be full of joy.
I was asked to join the board. I definitely thought, like, the climate crisis and housing. I mean, that's all I think about. I can't do anything else. That is the most important issue of our time. But I think, you know, while I still think that's true, I also kind of, the educator in my heart, you know, also really believes in the nurturing of the micro level, and that we can't just think about the huge systemic changes without kind of seeing the people and the journeys that we want people to go on. And I think Bronfman is such a rare space, both in the United States, but especially in Israel.
Bronfman is like a very specific point. We push on it, and it's take the whole community up in this way. It's very small group, but it's a group. Its effect is very רחב.